They say language was once universal. That long ago, before history was written in fragments and truth became buried beneath layers of myth, humanity spoke with a single voice, a language not merely of words, but of resonance, a tongue that vibrated in harmony with creation itself. But then something shattered. A great division was forced upon us. And at the heart of that fracture stands the Tower of Babel. The story, as told in scriptures, is simple. Mankind, united and ambitious, sought to build a tower that reached the heavens. In response, God confused their language and scattered them across the earth. A tale of divine punishment, a warning against hubris. But what if that's only the surface? What if the Tower of Babel wasn't just a monument of arrogance, but a technological, spiritual, and energetic construct far beyond what we've been led to believe? What if the true purpose of the tower was not to defy God, but to return to God, to bridge the human and the divine through sacred architecture, celestial alignment, and vibrational frequency? And what if the reason it was destroyed had less to do with divine wrath, and more to do with control? In this video, we'll peel back the layers of metaphor and myth. We'll explore the Tower of Babel through the lens of esoteric teachings, ancient cosmology, and forbidden knowledge that has been hidden in plain sight. You'll discover the real reason humanity was divided, the power encoded in unified consciousness, and why recovering this lost wisdom could be the key to our collective evolution. This is not a story about a building. It's a story about language, frequency, and the weaponization of division. The Tower of Babel is not just a relic of the past. It is a mirror of our present, and perhaps a map to our future. If you've ever felt that something vital has been kept from us, if you've ever sensed that the world is fragmented by design, then what you're about to hear may not just change what you believe about the Tower of Babel, it may change what you believe about humanity itself. Let us begin. To understand the Tower of Babel, we must first shed the veil of literalism that has long obscured its true significance. The story, tucked within the book of Genesis, is deceptively brief, only 9 verses long. Yet its implications ripple through countless cultures, mythologies, and esoteric traditions. In ancient Mesopotamia, the region now known as Iraq, the Sumerians and later the Babylonians built vast ziggurats, step pyramids believed to link heaven and earth. One of these structures, the Edamananki, translated as Temple of the Foundation of Heaven and Earth, was dedicated to the god Marduk and located in Babylon. Many scholars believe this was the historical inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel. But what if it was more than that? What if the tower was not just physical, but also metaphysical, a multidimensional construct built not only of stone and mortar, but of intention, vibration, and divine knowledge? In Kabbalistic tradition, the story of Babel is a profound metaphor. Humanity, once unified, possessed a singular language, a language not of grammar and syntax, but of vibration. In esoteric thought, language and frequency are one and the same. Words are spells, sounds are codes. To speak the true language was to access the blueprint of reality. The fall of Babel, then, was not just the loss of a common tongue, it was the shattering of a higher state of consciousness. The philosopher Philo of Alexandria, writing in the 1st century, interpreted the tower not as a sin of pride, but as an allegory of man's inner striving to reconnect with the divine essence. In Hermetic texts, the ascent to the heavens is symbolic of spiritual awakening, the journey inward to the divine spark. Could the tower, then, represent the vertical axis of being, the human spine as the ladder to higher consciousness, echoing Jacob's dream of a ladder reaching into heaven? Let us also consider the idea that the fragmentation of language was not a punishment, but a containment. The unification of humanity, aligned in purpose and vibration, presents a threat to any force that thrives on division and disempowerment. A unified species cannot be controlled, but a fragmented one, easily manipulated. By scattering us across the earth and severing the cords of resonance, the architects of our forgetting ensured that humanity would remain asleep. Why else would so many ancient cultures, Egyptians, Mayans, Vedic sages, refer to a time when language was sacred, when the word was divine, and creation itself began with sound. The Logos, the Oem, the creative utterance that brought the universe into being. This echoes the mystery school's teaching, that in the beginning was vibration, and all that exists is merely a dance of frequencies. The story of Babel, then, is a veil over a deeper truth. It is the tale of a species that once touched the divine, and was then severed from it. It is the tale of how humanity lost its voice, not merely its language, but its spiritual voice, its coherence, its unified resonance with the source. And perhaps it is a tale that is not yet finished. Imagine for a moment a time before division, a golden era spoken of in myths across the world. The Greeks called it the Age of Kronos, the Hindus knew it as Satya Yuga, and the Hopi elders refer to it as the First World, a time of unity, peace, and direct connection with the divine. In this primal age, language was not merely spoken, it was sung. It resonated. It created. This was the world before Babel. The tower, according to esoteric traditions, was never merely an architectural feat, it was a sacred technology. An antenna, if you will, built to harmonize the collective frequency of humanity with the divine realms. It was the symbolic spinal cord of mankind, reaching from the base instincts of the earth to the highest aspirations of the spirit. In Hermetic teachings, the axiom, as above, so below, reveals that structures built in alignment with celestial patterns are not merely symbolic, they are energetic conduits. The tower, built to mirror the heavens, was designed not to invade heaven, but to resonate with it. In this way, humanity could once again commune with higher dimensions, receiving divine inspiration, wisdom, and power. But herein lies the paradox. What the ancient builders were creating was a unified field of consciousness. One language, one frequency, one intent. A collective will, vibrating in harmony. From the standpoint of cosmic evolution, this was an ascension event, a leap toward enlightenment. But to certain forces, both human and non-human, this was dangerous. Because unity is power. Resonance creates harmony, and harmony awakens remembrance. If humanity remembered its true nature, its divine inheritance, the age of control, fear, and separation would collapse. The illusion would be over, so the tower had to fall. But the method of its destruction was not merely physical. It was psychological, linguistic, energetic. The scattering of tongues was an act of fragmentation, an intentional severing of the spiritual nervous system of humanity. With the language confused, the resonance shattered, and the collective intent dissolved, humanity fell into disharmony. And once divided, we became vulnerable. Different languages became different tribes. Different tribes became nations. Nations became enemies. The game of divide and rule had begun. There are echoes of this elsewhere. In the Hindu myth of the churning of the ocean, Devas and Asuras worked together to extract the nectar of immortality. But once obtained, chaos ensues, and the nectar is hidden away. In the Promethean myth, fire, symbolizing divine knowledge, is stolen from the gods and given to humanity, only for Prometheus to be bound in eternal punishment. These aren't just stories. They are archetypal blueprints, warning us of the consequences of awakening before we are ready, or more accurately, before those in power are ready to let us awaken. The Tower of Babel is another such myth. But instead of fire or nectar, what was taken from us was resonance, the unified frequency of spiritual language that once allowed humanity to access divine states of being. In the ancient mystery schools, initiates were taught the language of the birds, a metaphor for a sacred, vibrational language understood not with the mind, but with the soul. Some say the Druids knew it. The Egyptian priests whispered it through temple walls. Even in Islamic mysticism, there are tales of Solomon speaking the language of animals and angels, a communication beyond words. Could it be that the Tower of Babel represented the last time this divine resonance was wielded collectively? Could its destruction mark the point when humanity fell into the long sleep of spiritual amnesia? And if so, is it possible to rebuild, not the tower itself, but the resonance? Many believe so, and the clues are hidden all around us, in ancient chants, sacred geometry, forgotten alphabets, and the study of cymatics, which reveals how sound can shape matter itself. The deeper we go, the more we uncover. The Tower of Babel was not the end. It was a warning and a map. To truly understand the forbidden truth behind the Tower of Babel, we must ask ourselves a daring question. What if the tower didn't just fall? What if it was sealed, locked away behind layers of myth, misdirection, and mistranslation to ensure that we never find it again? Let's begin with the very word Babel. We're told it means confusion, but in its original Akkadian form, Babilu, it means gate of God. A portal, a passageway, a threshold between the mortal and the divine. This changes everything. The tower then wasn't just about climbing, it was about entering, about unlocking the gates of perception and crossing into higher dimensions of reality. And the deeper we dig, the more we find that this idea of a gate appears again and again in ancient traditions. In Sumerian texts, there is the concept of the Abzu, a primordial abyss that connects heaven and earth. The Egyptians spoke of the Duat, an invisible realm accessed through hidden portals in the stars. The Mayans built pyramids not just to honor gods, but as star-aligned gateways for spiritual ascension. All point to the same idea. The ancients weren't just stacking stones, they were engineering access points to the divine. So why would such a tower, one built to unify and uplift, be destroyed? The answer may lie in what esotericists call the archonic forces, parasitic energies that thrive in chaos, division, and fear. These forces, whether literal or symbolic, cannot survive in a unified field. The Tower of Babel was a direct threat to their dominion. It represented humanity's return to sovereignty, to the divine remembrance of who and what we are. Let us consider the symbolic architecture of the tower itself. In esoteric numerology, the structure is said to have had 7 levels, corresponding to the 7 chakras of the human energy body. The higher you ascended, the closer you came to divine union, just as the awakened Kundalini serpent rises through the spine, unlocking higher states of consciousness. Could it be that the Tower of Babel was an external mirror of the internal temple, the temple of the human soul? And that by shattering the tower, these forces didn't just destroy a building, they disrupted humanity's inner ascension blueprint? Even in the biblical narrative, the punishment is strangely precise. God does not destroy the people, he divides their speech. Why? Because language is the root of perception. Control the language, and you control the reality. Words are spells. The word spell itself comes from the idea of spelling, to craft reality through sound. And so the scattering of tongues wasn't just a punishment, it was a spell cast on humanity. A fragmentation of the original logos, the primordial word, through which all things were made. Once fractured, the sacred geometry of unity collapsed. The world fell into disharmony, and in that vacuum, fear-based systems of power took hold. But the story doesn't end in ruin. In fact, echoes of the original resonance remain, hidden in plain sight. Consider the sacred languages, Sanskrit, Hebrew, Latin, Guizi. These were never just methods of communication, they were vibrational codes. When chanted, they awaken specific frequencies within the human energy field. Each syllable is a key, each word a lock waiting to be turned. The ancient name of God in Hebrew, YHWH, was never meant to be pronounced, not because it was forbidden, but because it was vibrational. The sound, when breathed correctly, mimics the act of inhalation and exhalation. The name of God was literally the breath of life. Mystical traditions across the world echo this truth. When the original resonance is restored, through sacred sound, symbol, and intention, the gate reopens. The tower, then, was never meant to be rebuilt in stone. It must be reawakened within. Today, we see whispers of this rebirth in the growing interest in sacred sound healing, solfeggio frequencies, and the rediscovery of ancient alphabets. Cymatics shows us how sound organizes matter into patterns, reminding us that vibration is the architect of form. As we begin to speak, sing, and breathe with intention once again, we step back into alignment with the frequency of unity. The confusion of tongues starts to dissolve. And with it, the gate that was once sealed begins to open. The real forbidden truth? The Tower of Babel never fell, it merely changed form. And once we learn to read the signs, to listen between the words, we realize we are the tower, and the ascent is ours to reclaim. If the Tower of Babel represents an inner ascent, a return to divine unity, then the journey is not made of bricks and mortar, but of practices that awaken the sacred architecture within us. The question, then, is simple yet profound. How do we reclaim the tower within? It begins with something so elemental, yet so often overlooked, the breath. Across ancient traditions, breath has always been the first key to unlocking spiritual awareness. In Hebrew, the word ruach means both spirit and breath. In Sanskrit, prana carries the same dual meaning. Even the sacred name YHWH, when spoken properly, was said to resemble the sound of breathing. Inhale and exhale, a divine presence in every breath. To reconnect with this wisdom, find a quiet space and begin a conscious breathing practice. Inhale deeply for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and pause again for 4 counts. As you breathe, mentally whisper the sacred sound, I am on the inhale and 1 on the exhale. This seemingly simple mantra begins to recenter you in the universal truth that separation is only an illusion. With regular practice, this breathing rhythm not only calms the body, it also starts to harmonize your energetic field, your inner tower, restoring coherence where chaos once ruled. But breath is only one thread of the divine tapestry. We must also turn to sound. In esoteric traditions, sound is not merely a vehicle for communication. It is creation itself. In the beginning was the Word, says the Gospel of John, echoing a truth that transcends religion. Ancient languages were encoded with vibration. Their power lay not just in meaning, but in resonance. One simple and potent practice to access this is through the chanting of Om, the primordial sound. This vibration corresponds with the original tone of the cosmos. As you chant Om, feel its echo through your body. Let the A open your belly and root chakra, the U move through your chest and heart, and the M rise to your crown. Chanting in this way, even for 10 minutes a day, helps align your inner centers. You begin to awaken the sevenfold path, the inner spiral staircase, which mystics have long seen as humanity's true Tower of Babel. Visualizing this ascent can be transformative. In quiet meditation, imagine a current of energy rising from the base of your spine upward, lighting up each chakra like a torch. With each breath and sound, you reunite the scattered tongues within, the fractured thoughts, emotions, and instincts, until they harmonize into one voice. This inner unification must also extend to the way we speak. In our modern age, language is cheapened and fragmented. We speak often, but rarely with power. One of the most esoteric practices is sacred speech, not religious words, but intentional language. Begin to notice how you speak. Are your words reinforcing limitation? Do you speak from fear or empowerment? Try replacing phrases like I can't or that's just how it is with declarations that resonate with higher truth. Begin each morning with phrases such as I speak with clarity and truth, or my words are aligned with divine will. This rewires your mental and energetic patterns, aligning your vibration with the creative principle that was once scattered in Babel. Finally, we must not ignore the power of symbols. If sound is one half of the divine code, sacred geometry is the other. Patterns like the flower of life, the spiral, or the Sri Yantra are not just designs. They are visual languages that speak to your subconscious. Spend time with them. Meditate on them. Draw them. These symbols, often found in ancient temples and hidden manuscripts, can reawaken memories older than words. In restoring our breath, our word, our sound, and our symbol, we begin to rise. We ascend not in defiance, but in remembrance. The tower is not out there. It never was. It is within us, waiting to be rebuilt not by ego, but by awareness. And here lies the great paradox. The gate to God was never lost. It was only forgotten. And through mindful practice, sacred speech, and conscious intention, we become the gate once more. a living bridge between the human and the divine, a tower of unity built not toward heaven, but from it. So what, then, do we make of the Tower of Babel? Was it merely an architectural misstep punished by a jealous God, or have we been reading it all wrong? Perhaps the true transgression was not in building upward, but in forgetting why we build at all. Perhaps it wasn't divine wrath that scattered our tongues, but our own ego, our own hunger to dominate rather than unify, to conquer rather than connect. The forbidden truth behind the Tower of Babel is not that we reached too far toward the heavens, but that we tried to do so without inner alignment, without remembering the divine spark within each of us. The tower fell not because it threatened the gods, but because it lacked sacred foundation. And yet, the story was never about punishment. It was a map, a riddle, a mirror held up to humanity. It revealed that when we build from ego, we fragment. But when we build from awareness, from breath, from sound, from intention, we rise again. The languages may differ, the cultures may clash, but beneath the illusion of division, we are still speaking one language, the language of the soul, waiting to be remembered. So here we are millennia later, staring once more into the heavens, not with bricks in hand, but with questions in our hearts. Will we continue to scatter ourselves in distraction and noise? Or will we rebuild the tower within, one breath, one word, one awakening at a time? The choice is yours. If this exploration stirred something within you, if it whispered to a part of you that remembers, even faintly, then let that be your sign. Like this video, share it with a fellow seeker, and join us here where we uncover what was hidden and remember what was never truly lost. This is not the end. It is the first step up the tower. Are you ready to rise?